So, I don't know, 25 years ago or so, the first Ultimate Fighting Challenge pitted every martial arts style against each other in real hand-to-hand combat with no rules. The purpose was to see which is truly the best martial art. Many people up to that point thought it was karate, or kung fu, or taekwondo. I had my money on a little-known art called Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I confess, literally, I had my money. New Jersey sports betting was a thing before it was a thing, before it was a legal thing as it is now, unfortunately. But and the reason I had my money on Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is because I knew about them. I had studied them. I had trained a little bit with a guy that came over from Brazil, and the history is that these guys, this Gracie family, if you're not familiar with it, it's a family of brothers. The father took judo, and he knew judo, and he would challenge street fighters and fight to real street fights in the streets of Rio de Janeiro, and he would use the moves that worked and not use the moves that he would experiment what worked and what didn't in real fights. So the little Brazilian, smallest guy in the ring, won the battle because it was tried and true, proven method of fighting. It actually worked in real fights. It wasn't theory. It wasn't in a gym, in a controlled environment. He really used it in real life. So I knew he was going to win, and he won. And so did I. But in the same way, for the past 30 years, I have been reading the smartest guys way smarter than me, C.S. Lewis, Peter Crift, William Lane Craig, some of the best apologists on Catholic Answers recently when I converted to Catholicism 5 years ago. And I used these fighting methods, so to speak, on overcoming atheist objections in the street. So I'm going to share with you what worked, and I'm not going to tell you what didn't work because no sense you wasting your time. But I'm going to have a series of overcoming atheist objections based on real life street fighting techniques, arguing with atheists. But first, according to the book, The Art of War, that most generals and admirals in the military read today, it's an ancient book, like 3,000 years old, you need to know your enemy in order to defeat your enemy. And there's two kinds of atheisms today. There's the old atheism and the new atheism. And here's the difference. The old atheists believed there was no God. But if you want to believe in religion, no harm done. Probably a good thing. The new atheists think religion is harmful and they need to defeat it by ridiculing it, making fun of it, dismissing it. Basically, the old atheists believe what they believe based on science, based on philosophy, based on history, logic, reason. The new atheists only believe science. Basically, they worship the religion of scientism. If they can't prove it scientifically, they believe it's not possible, it doesn't exist. And obviously you can't prove supernatural things through science because they're supernatural. The only thing you can prove through science is natural. So the new atheists are more aggressive. You would think they would be more dangerous because they attack. They're on the offense, where old atheists would be on the defense. See, the Christians would try and convert the old atheists so they were on defense and give their atheistic arguments defending their beliefs. The new atheists are on attack. They want to destroy religion. And the new atheism got big after 9/11. The unofficial leaders, who are called the Four Horsemen, Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, Daniel Dennett, and Sam Harris, they're like the unofficial leaders of the new atheism. They decided that they needed to go on the offensive and teach these young college kids that religion is dumb, religion is ridiculous, Christianity is a myth, and they went as far as teaching these people Jesus don't exist. So even though the new atheists seem more dangerous, they're actually easier to defeat an argument because they know nothing about philosophy, nothing about logic, nothing about reason, and nothing about history. So I'm not going to get into all the objections today, but I'll just give you a little example. I had a relative that dismissed a meme on another relative's Facebook about Jesus, saying he didn't even exist. And I was able to basically wipe the floor with them because there's so much evidence that Jesus existed. There's not one scholar today, not one historian today that would deny that Jesus existed. So they would say, oh, well, and then they'll dismiss it and say, well, the only argument you have is the Bible. And all these people were Christians, so I'm not going to believe that. Well, number one, that's a ridiculous argument because every historian today would tell you the Bible is by far the most reliable historical document we have. For example, historians prove history is true by how close the writers are to the actual event and by how many manuscripts. So by far the New Testament has the most manuscripts, 24,000. Okay? The second place ancient history would be Homer's Iliad with 600 manuscripts. So, and that's considered 100% reliable, Homer's. So the Bible, the New Testament, is thousands of times more accurate based on historical standards. Another standard that historians use is how close to the original event. The New Testament was written by eyewitnesses of Jesus. And the argument that they made this up is ridiculous. For example, it's written in the New Testament that women found the empty tomb first of Jesus. Well, back 2,000 years ago, a woman's testimony was incredible. They were considered second-class citizens. So it would be embarrassing to write that. And if you were trying to make an argument to win an argument, you wouldn't put that women found the tomb empty first. Why would they write it? Because it was true. The New Testament is true. That's why they wrote it. So when you're debating a new atheist, they don't know any of this. In fact, Ravi Zacharias, a Protestant apologist who I admire and respect, said he spoke at Harvard. And he's speaking to the brightest minds in the country. And these people had like less than a first grade Sunday school knowledge of the Bible. And when he was able to explain it to these people, they were amazed. And he said he was getting like juvenile questions. It was almost embarrassing, the kind of questions they were asking about the Bible. So we can trust the Bible as being historically accurate. And when they tell you that it's a myth, say name one historian today with any credibility, any scholar with a PhD behind his name, show me one that says it was a myth. And you can Google and find 100 that says it wasn't a myth, that it's true. Now, if you want to take this a step further and show them that historians out, because they say there's no ancient history of anything outside the Bible proving Jesus. There's plenty, and I'll read a few right here. This is from the first century. These are first century historians that weren't Christians. Okay, so Tacitus, he was a Roman governor. I'm sorry, Tacitus was a first century historian. I apologize. First century historian. He writes this: Nero fastened the guilt on a class hated for their abominations, called Christians by the populace. Christus, which is Christ in Latin, from whom the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty under the reign of Tiberius at the hands of Pontius Pilate, a most mischievous superstition. Thus, checked for the moment, again broke out not only in Judea, the first source of the evil, but even in Rome. So this was a Roman pagan historian describing, saying, their abomination, following Christ, calling it an evil, calling it a superstition, but he's proven that Christ existed and the Christians existed, and Christ was punished, the ultimate punishment, which is crucifixion, by Pontius Pilate, which Christians have been reciting the Apostle Creed since the first century, that he was crucified by Pontius Pilate. Okay, then if you go to Pliny the Younger, this was a Roman governor. He wrote this about Christians. They were in the habit of meeting on a certain fixed day before it was light, when they sang in alternate verses a hymn to Christ as to God, and bound themselves by a solemn oath, not to any wicked deeds, but never to commit any fraud, theft, or adultery, never to falsify their word or deny a trust, when they should be called upon to deliver it up, after which it was their custom to separate and then reassemble to partake of food, but food of an ordinary and innocent kind, what us Catholics call the Eucharist. And then, probably the greatest first century historian, a Jewish historian named Josephus, wrote this: "About this time there lived Jesus, a wise man, if indeed one ought to call him a man, for he wrought surprising feats. He was the Christ. When Pilate condemned him to be crucified, those who had come to love him did not give up their affection for him. On the third day he appeared, restored to life, and the tribe of Christians has not disappeared." Now, some historians think that Christians later on added that part that he rose again and came to life, but none of them disagreed that Josephus wrote about the time there lived Jesus, a wise man. So there's abundant evidence. I can go on and on. There's a list of first century historians that say Jesus existed. So when you're debating with an atheist, a new atheist, he may not even know this. So that's the first thing you want to throw out. Well, we know Jesus existed. What did Jesus say? And once you get them to admit Jesus existed, you say, well, they'll probably say, well, he was probably just a wise man, a good man. As C.S. Lewis said, Jesus claimed to be God. So either he was a liar or he was a lunatic, because claiming to be God was enough to get you crucified, or he was Lord. So as C.S. Lewis says, he's either a liar, a lunatic, or Lord. There's no other option here. And getting back to my cousin, my relative, who dismissed Jesus even existed, I thought that he just was never taught this, because he's into scientism. He's, loves science. He's actually a science school teacher, and he knows nothing of philosophy, nothing of logic, nothing of reason, nothing of history. But Richard Dawkins, one of these four horsemen, actually said Jesus probably never existed. John Lennox, a Christian apologist, in a debate, proved to him and had him admit, and I put it on my like videos if you want to see it, it's less than a minute long, they just took a clip of it. Richard Dawkins admitted, yes, okay, Jesus did exist. So these guys that these young college students are learning from, Richard Dawkins is one of the four horsemen who wrote several books, proving God didn't exist. Under scrutiny from another smart, John Lennox is a PhD professor at Oxford, So when they have to deal face to face with these guys, they admit the truth, and the truth is Jesus existed. But they're teaching these young college kids, no, Jesus never existed, because they want to totally wipe any little bit of faith these college students have. So when a really smart Christian debates a really smart atheist, the Christian wipes the floor with them. And a case in point, a video you should check out, William Lane Craig, debating one of the four horsemen, Christopher Hitchens. By the end of the debate, Christopher Hitchens admits he lost, said he wasn't prepared for the debate. And afterwards they asked him, what was that about? You tapped out. All his atheist friends were disappointed because everybody watching had seen he lost the debate. And the debate was, does God exist? And Christopher Hitchens actually says, I wasn't prepared. I was arguing things, the old arguments we did in the 70s and 80s. These new Christian apologists have so much information I have to study up. He didn't become a Christian. In fact, he did become friends with another Christian apologist that he debated, Larry Taunton. And Larry Taunton said that when Christopher Hitchens was dying, he started reading the Bible. He'd never seen him make a public confession of faith. He was never baptized. But he started to read the Bible, Christopher Hitchens. And then Richard Dawkins was supposed to debate William Lane Craig, but after he's seen him wipe the floors with Christopher Hitchens, he's backed out. And he never debated him. So don't be afraid to engage in these people. And like I said, I'm going to give you some fighting techniques that worked for me. And I say that, metaphorically, fighting. In all reality, we're loving these people. We don't want to see these people die and go to hell. We don't want to see these people live apart from God even while they're on this earth. Because there's so much peace and joy that can be experienced. So when we debate them, We're debating them because we love them, and you don't want to come across like you're angry. You don't want to come across like you're mad. So, you want to be, I'm going to give you techniques that I learned that I actually used that worked, but you want the Holy Spirit to guide you. And there's sometimes the Holy Spirit will tell you to shut up. There's sometimes the Holy Spirit will give you things to say that you never even learned. That just, once you take that step of faith like Peter and you step out on the ocean, you never know what God's going to do with you. So, look forward to those videos, overcoming atheist objections, and I'll be sending them out soon. God bless.